It's VA Wednesday. So today I want to talk to you about one of the biggest misconceptions that I hear time and time again with VA loans, and it makes me so angry. So it's time to just dispel this myth. We're gonna cast stones on it, and I'm gonna explain to you where it comes from and why it's that pile in my garden, right? Okay, so here we go. VA loans are so hard to do. The property has to be perfect. No, not at all, not at all. So I'm gonna walk you through a couple things that people think are so difficult about VA, and we're gonna talk about truth and fiction, or fact and fiction, or whatever you wanna call it, truth and myth, I don't know. Okay, so number one, the appraisal for a VA mortgage is so much more difficult. No, it's not. It's totally not. So if I, as a lender who does both VA and conventional mortgages, I do a lot of conventional too, guys. The conventional mortgages and the VA mortgages, the house has to be in average or better condition. Yeah, average or better condition. So if it's dated, that's cool. That's fine. That's average or better condition. If it is missing like a kitchen, if the kitchen has been totally gutted and there's no cabinet, stove, or anything, that's a problem for both. That's not just a problem with VA. Going conventional would not be a silver bullet in that circumstance. So, same. Now, where is it different? Well, with VA, they are going to check to make sure the heater works. They are going to check to make sure there's hot water. I mean, why wouldn't you want those things? Like, personally, I'm not going to buy a house where the water can't get hot. Like, why would I even do that? Why would you do that to yourself? You wouldn't. That's a terrible idea. And then the heater, like, yeah, please, warmth, heat, that's a good thing. Like, with conventional, you need to have a heater. They don't necessarily test it, whereas with VA, they definitely test it. Because sometimes you can have what are called decorative heaters, which basically they mean they totally don't work at all, but no one's going to tell you unless you test it. Yeah, it's fun, right? So yeah, appraisal, no big deal. No big deal. And sometimes people are like, well, I heard VA appraisals take forever. Not really. I mean, from what I'm seeing is that it depends on the county how long an appraisal takes, whether it's VA or conventional. It's basically the same because it depends on how many appraisers are in an area. Like, there's a part of California where it takes 3 to 4 weeks to get an appraisal, and it's because it's rural. It doesn't matter if it's VA or conventional, it's gonna take a while to get that appraisal. Whereas in other areas, you know, it takes 7 days. Whether it's a VA or conventional, we get it back fast. So that's important. There is one cool thing about VA that conventional does not have when it comes to the appraisal, and that's what we know as Tidewater. Yes, so I'm gonna do a quick thing on Tidewater. So what Tidewater is when an appraisal is about to come in below value. So let's say that you offered $300,000 on the house. The appraiser, if he goes out there and he's like, I don't know about this, he actually notifies the lender that there's a Tidewater, and the lender and the realtors have 2 days to get comps over to the appraiser so that he can see if there's additional information to support the value of the purchase contract. With conventional, if the appraiser thinks it's worth $280, you don't get to try to get that value. You don't get to go to him and say, hey sir, here's some more stuff. You get that value. Here's your $280, then you can try to fight it. But with VA, what's really nice is you get that window before you get the report. And it's the appraiser saying, hey, look guys, is there something I missed? Like, let's work as a team to see if I missed something. If I didn't, I am gonna do the value of this house because that's his job. His job's to appraise what the house is worth. Okay, so appraisal, I would actually argue VA is nicer than conventional because you don't get that Tidewater with conventional. Okay. What's next? Well reports. Okay, so if you're in the city and you're on city water, this does not apply to you. If you are on a well, if you're buying a house on a well, then VA does require that we review the well report. And are you ready for this horrible, hard thing that we have to ask for? The VA requires that the water is drinkable and meets EPA or local standards. I mean, it seems like a basic thing you'd want, right? Like, if your only source of water is a well, don't you want to make sure you can drink the water? Isn't it kind of scary if you can't? I don't want to buy a water. I don't want to buy a house where the water has lead like if the seller couldn't figure out how to make the water drinkable, what makes you think that you can buy the house and magically do something better? The key is before closing, that water needs to be drinkable. And if it requires a UV light or some sort of filtration system, great. You want that covered before you move in. Now with conventional, I don't have to see the well report, but as a friend, I would say, oh my God, don't buy a house that has undrinkable water. Like, because what if you're in the shower and you like open your mouth? Do you want to have bottled water your whole life? Like, why isn't it drinkable? Did they try a filtration system? You know, what about the UV? I think they're UV sanitizers. I'm not an expert in this field, but what has been done? I wouldn't want to jump into having my house be something where if my kids open up their mouth and drink water, they could get sick. So people feel like, oh, well, the VA is so difficult. They're really not. They're just trying to make sure that these houses are in basic living standards. So one more thing to think about is the pest report. So certain states require for VA that the lender reviews the pest report and all Section 1 items get fixed prior to close. Okay? Conventional loans do not require a pest report unless it's in the contract. And then it's a totally different story. But with VA, we have to have a pest report in certain states. So California would be a great example of that, as with Texas. So basically with any purchase transaction, we're gonna want a copy of that pest report and a clear Section 1. And people are like, what is a clear Section 1? Well, Section 1 are items that can they're actively hurting the property. So dry rot, an active infestation of the creepy crawlies, mold sometimes will come in there. I mean, there's a whole host of things that are going to be Section 1 items that need to be cleared prior to close. Personally, once again, if a house has wood-boring beetles or something creepy crawly going on, like, yeah, please clean that stuff up before I move in. Like, I don't need that. If the house is riddled with dry rot, it's going to be an expense that I'm going to have to incur as a homeowner to maintain the structure of the home if it's not cleared prior to close. So VA is not being picky or terrible. They're just trying to make sure that people who are getting into homes with the VA loans are getting into homes that aren't going to put them in a negative financial situation. And of course, look, the VA is never guaranteeing the quality of any of these homes. They can't. They're doing their best to have the lenders review the inspections by the professionals that you hire, except for the appraiser. The VA picks the appraisers. Everyone else is on you guys. It's on your realtors. Maybe it's on the seller. So they're just having us review everything to do our best determination to make sure that moving in the house won't put you in a negative financial situation. And tenting houses for termites, dry rot repair, UV filtration systems for wells, all that sort of stuff adds up quick. So it's not a bad thing that they're looking at all of this. Now, if you're watching this video and you're like, okay, I want to do a VA home with a fixer-upper. No. You want to do a conventional loan with a fixer-upper? No. In both cases, you need a renovation loan for a fixer-upper. So anything that's in below average condition, so missing rooms, missing toilets. I mean, if you go back to the foreclosure days, I'd have people call me about houses where they had ripped all the copper piping out of the house. Yeah, seriously, that happened. You can't finance that with a traditional conventional or a traditional VA loan. You're gonna need a renovation loan. Now, it's important to note that I do not do renovation loans. It is not my niche. It is one of those loans where you need someone where that is all they do. They eat, breathe, and sleep it because they're incredibly niche loans. There's a lot of moving parts to it. There's a lot of ways to have a bad consumer experience, which is why I stepped away from it, is because, you know, whenever you have a contractor involved, I'm out. I'm out. I am not going to be responsible for that train wreck because I have seen that go sideways. You know, when I was first starting out, I would do every loan I could. And wow, the lender always gets the blame. So if the contractor doesn't fill out their paperwork and the lender can't close on time, it's not the contractor's fault who they called 50 times. It's always the lender. So you really want to make sure that if you are going to look at a renovation loan, that you're working with a lender that does them every single day and specializes in them. If someone's just done one or two, run. You need a specialist. Yeah, I wouldn't go near anyone who wasn't a specialist with that loan if I was buying one of those properties. So I hope this has been helpful. If you're trying to buy a regular house that's not a fixer-upper. VA is great. It's really not harder. It's really not as difficult as some people make it. There's so many people in this industry, and they'll be like, well, I've been in the industry for 30 years. And you did one VA deal. Like your experience, of one deal is not super, it's not a big sample set there. One, it was so hard. Okay, well, what decade was it? Who was the lender? Because a lot of it comes down to lender. If it's someone who doesn't do a lot of them, hasn't run into the whole like drinking water and all that fun stuff, of course it can be rocky, but do not be scared of doing a VA loan. If someone talks you out of using your entitlement, you need to know why. The only time I think it makes sense to not do a VA loan is if you have the funding fee and 20% down. That's the only time we're really gonna struggle with it. And the reason is that the funding fees can be steep, especially on subsequent use. And if you have, a down payment that's larger, you don't need mortgage insurance, so there can be other solutions. But if someone's just trying to talk you out of using, like if someone's trying to say, oh, don't do VA, do FHA, there is not one world that would make sense in, right? And the only reason someone would be trying to steer you that way would be if they know the house has pest issues. Because with FHA, we don't need a pest report, but with VA, we do. And personally, I'm not gonna buy a house with pest issues, and I don't think you guys should either. So I hope this has been helpful. As always, questions, comments, please reach out. Yes, I am a mortgage lender, and I am now licensed in 44 states. Yes, we added Nebraska to the list just last week, and hopefully Maryland comes through because I finished that education, and then I'll be at 45. Oh my God, it's getting so exciting. So thank you for watching. As always, I really appreciate my subscribers. I appreciate all you guys. If this video is helpful, please like it. I need to start saying that for the algorithm. So like it, subscribe it, whatever you need, I'm always here. Thank you.